It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we turn it into a Monday. Gary, how are you?
Not good because there's nothing to talk about.
Not much going on.
Yeah,
huh?
nothing really happened.
Really
over
slow
the
weekend. Not
Yeah.
much at all.
Alan's back from vacation, and he said on the New Jersey beaches he didn't see one political sign that was made with seashells.
Oh, not even one.
He was on the beach, yeah.
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 That's funny. Because, if you're a former FBI director, you see a lot of them, apparently.
Yeah.
I guess you have to know which beaches to go to.
He didn't see anything like, remember, these are the New Jersey beaches, like Springsteen hates Trump.
Right. Yeah,
There's
yeah.
nothing like that.
Yeah.
He didn't find that at all. So.
Bon Jovi, anti-Trump forever. Nothing like that. Nothing like that, I guess. Okay.
Nothing like that. Wow, what a weekend. Epstein officially a suicide by the Trump administration. We'll get to that coming up, which makes me and you both wonder. Then what the hell was waving that folder about?
What did you have to show anybody?
Remember the folder where they
Right.
were all shaking the folder. Here we go. Here we go.
Because it makes you wonder if they even read what was in the folder before they came out and started waving it.
I know it's
Now, it's like, did you guys even read what was in it? Nothing new.
Yeah, Cash Patel and Dan Bongino. When you said Bon Jovi, it reminded me of Bongino.
Yeah,
and
we
Dan
used to joke,
Bongino
call him Dan Bon Jovi. Yeah.
coming out and saying absolutely a suicide.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. What a weekend though. You think about it. The her tape coming out, Axios. By the way, why did Axios get it, and why didn't the Justice Department release it first? How did Axios get something from this Justice Department?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Or did Axios get it before January 20th somehow and not do anything with it?
Yeah, that's a great point. Oh, that's a bad. Well, since we're talking cover up, that moves us into the solidly here into
or post January 20th and not from this Justice Department, but somewhere else from a former administration insider.
Why? I'm not asking you for an answer.
it would make sense in the mea culpa era of, basically nobody contesting anymore that there were cognitive issues, right? And we talked about the insider book to be written isn't from Jake Tapper. He wasn't an insider. Well, he was a media insider, but a real insider, not Jake Tapper. Jake Sullivan would be the book. But it would make sense that somebody got hold of that tape and then just was dying to let it be known, because the left wanted to, is wanting to move on from the Biden era. They're pointing to Joe Biden as, and him deciding to run again as the reason they lost. It's not Kamala's fault. She didn't have enough time. By the way, we told you they were going to say that. They've been saying that repeatedly. I don't know how many times I heard it over the weekend. The View was saying it last week. She didn't have enough time in the whole thing. It's, by the way, it's predictable. It's not that we made any great prediction. It's highly predictable because it's coming from the left.
Why would they say that though? Is it because they believe she's the best hope for 2028?
I guess. Well, they can't get off the identity politics. They needed to be a woman of color.
Yeah, it's racism and sexism.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's and the more that you have a Carvel screaming, what the hell is going on? They're wanting to do more of the same. Their entire play on identity politics is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, and it's quite unfortunate for them, but I just don't think they have any other game.
And so you had the Republicans on Friday say, we're going to investigate this. We're going to bring everybody forward. And then yesterday afternoon, the announcement that Biden is battling, quote, most aggressive type, end of quote, of prostate cancer that has metastasized to the bone. And of course, just, terrible. Anybody who knows anybody who's, had cancer or even prostate cancer that has metastasized, the future for the most part isn't good.
I have a family member with the same diagnosis right now, and it isn't good. The family meeting basically that we had on it was very, very sad. So our thoughts and prayers are with the former president and his family and the caretakers. I don't wish for anybody to suffer on any level.
Yeah, my dad didn't have prostate cancer, but he had to have the vast majority of it removed. It was just becoming enlarged where it was blocking his bladder.
Right. Prostate cancer itself, just, without being metastasized, but prostate cancer itself, the longer you live, the much greater the chance that you're going to get it. They say that most men will get it if they live long enough. And so, it's a very slow-growing cancer typically. But once it's spread, obviously, that's shown to be a very aggressive type of prostate cancer, which is exactly what we're hearing.
And so the politics of this was, and I think I forgot the Democrat. I'm looking at him and I can see him in my head. I just can't think of his name. Said, well, I mean, this is probably going to die down a little bit. I don't think it is. Not if you look at social media at all, or even on CNN, they had a doctor on saying, who said, that hormonal treatment can cause cognitive problems. Well, you start connecting the dots as to where they're going at that particular point. It is rare, not that it doesn't happen, but it is rare that you go through from the beginning to end of prostate cancer that then metastasizes, where it doesn't take a couple of years to get to that point.
It was rare for my family member, and that was one of the first points that we heard in that conversation with that family member when they told us that it was extremely rare for it to be that aggressive. In that case, it was also hormonal. He naturally has a very high rate or high level of testosterone naturally, and the first part of that treatment included lowering that with different remedies, and then they moved on to other treatments. But they were hopeful that it would respond to hormones in a big way. But once, the problem is that once it metastasized, the prostate cancer is just part of it. The bone cancers is what you're treating, and then from there, it's more aggressive treatment, of course.
Well, what we now know from Jake Tapper's book, that nobody's really denying it. Did somebody deny it this past weekend?
I don't know. I didn't hear it. I didn't.
I'm trying to just sit in the back of my head. Did I read something somewhere? Besides calling Jake Tapper a hypocrite, and Jake Tapper's story, as we talked to on Friday's show, slowly changing. He should have recognized it. It's like, and no kidding. But the consensus that you see is, well, if they hid the cognitive abilities, of course they would hide it if they knew that he had prostate cancer.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, is there were some issues with his spine, and they said that's why his gait, the way he walks, had changed. And they said that, and this goes back before the diagnosis of the prostate cancer, but they said that that had not changed in roughly a year. Well, the question is, because there's two possibilities. It was there, and they didn't see it, and it wasn't diagnosed early enough, or it was there, and they did see it, and it was diagnosed, and it was kept from the American people.
Most males, if you're getting checked up, you're paying attention to your PSA once you're past 50 or 55.
Oh, yeah.
You're really paying attention. Probably most males who get checkups would be able to tell you what their PSA is because it's something that the doctor, focuses on. And, when you look at the entire thing, I mean, Van Jones was saying there are people that, knew not about this, but the cognitive abilities and said nothing. That's a crime against the republic. Remember, what you're talking about here, as this thing starts to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, is a shadow government where the person who was elected, and I think it was in the book where it was like if this was it was more like the presidency was a board of directors and Joe was a senior member of the board of directors. I think it's close enough to the quote.
Like he was a figurehead kind of president.
That he had some say in what was in what was going on. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
My
well,
God.
here's the thing. By the way, on that point, we didn't believe Jake Tapper and those who were defending him back then.
No, we did not.
So I don't put, and I never would in a tell-all book, but I don't know that what I believe about Jake Tapper in terms of the book, in terms of how aware he was and how much input he actually had at any given point. I trust zero in terms of that book, which is why it requires a further investigation. You and I were talking in the pre-show meeting. We both agree. This is no longer about Joe Biden. It's about the people who helped quite possibly cover up one of the greatest political scams and scandals in presidential history. I don't know many that would top this, if any.
And I think you started seeing the Republicans push it. I still think they will push it. It was David Axelrod, I believe, who said, this thing may die down a little bit. I don't think, it may die down for a week, but I don't know. Because everybody was covering it going, wait a minute, because that was the first thing. What is the length of time when you get diagnosed with prostate cancer to the time that it metastasized? And you saw a lot of people went online and looked at it and they said, well, most of the time it can take anywhere between 2 and 5 years to get to that particular point. But there are exceptions, as we know. There are exceptions, so it's impossible. But it puts, again, something else into what we all now accept as true, that Biden should not have been president of the United States for a significant period of time.
Right.
That he did not have the cognitive abilities to be president, and it was hidden by those closest to him. And so now we're at the point, and this isn't going to go away. Now you know the people around him. Now you need to find out who was making the decisions. Yeah, we know the people who use the auto pen. Comer said that. We'll get to that coming up. But who are the people that were actually making the decisions? And it goes back to something that you and I had talked about a few years ago when there was an attack, that the White House approved of. I believe it was in Iraq, going after ISIS or whatever.
Right.
And it was pretty complicated. I'll never forget reading what was going on and what they were, what the experts were saying. And I looked at you and I said on the air, I said, there's no way that Biden knows all of this.
Right.
There's no way. There's no way that Biden looked at this and said, well, this group over here and this group over here and this group over here and this group over here means that this is going on here and this is going on over here. And whatever the puzzle was at the time, I remember you and I going over it. Yeah. And I'm looking at you saying, there's no way that he made this call.
Right.
And if he made the call, he didn't know what he was making.
Right.
At that point. And now that the book is out and nobody is debating that there was a cover-up, this thing only goes in one direction. Right. Now the next thing is, all right, we know who used the auto pen. Who was making the decisions for Biden?
Right.
And so when I thought the same thing when I saw the whole board of director. Well, it was the presidency was sort of like a board of directors, and he was like a senior member of the board of directors, which means he had a partial say. And I went, is that trying to walk the tightrope here?
Yeah. Well,
Biden had some say?
Right. And
Joe, what do you think? Well, whatever.
Well, and that's the thing is how do you trust? How do you partially trust his cognitive skills? There is no half measure. There can't be. If you believe it's clouded at all, then you cannot move forward with that, which puts it back on them, which tells you then ultimately those decisions were made by somebody else and not him.
Mm-hmm. And that is a shadow government.
Right. And if they, because I could see them at the table going, well, we need an official head nod, because he's still president.
Yeah. Are you okay with it, Joe?
Yeah, exactly. And he nods his head.
It's all good, Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Want some lemonade, Joe? And he nods his head, yes. And there you have it.
Got a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
Hey there, this is Hope Zavara with Mother Trucker Yoga, and here's your health tip of the day. Healthy driver, healthy diesel, powered by Howes. Lower back pain is one of the most common complaints amongst truck drivers, with over 50% experiencing it regularly. Let's fix that. Sit up tall in your seat, inhale and arc your lower back away from the seat, like there's a pin behind you you're trying to avoid. Now exhale, round your back, and tuck your tailbone under, just like the shape of the letter C. Repeat that movement 5, 10, even 15 times until your lower back and hips start to loosen up and feel ready for the road. There you go. Small, simple changes can lead to big results so that you, my friend, can feel good again. Visit mothertruckeryoga.com and howesproducts.com for more tips and support.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We got a ton of audio coming up following the bottom of the hour on everything that's going on with the former President Joe Biden, from the cancer diagnosis to, as we know, his cognitive abilities and everything that blew up here in the last couple of days. The Axios tapes. It was December, you said, of 23, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
of 23?
Right, of 23. Yeah. And it was there had been some drone strikes by Iranian-backed forces and militias, including Hezbollah, and we conducted some airstrikes against them in Iraq. And this is about the time that then Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin was going through his surgery with his prostate cancer. Remember, there were complications, and he went back and had another surgery January 1st, so just days later. And we were wondering about that time. As we were learning more about those attacks, we were wondering, well, if Lloyd Austin is out and no one's heard from the president on this, who made this call? Yeah. And why aren't we hearing from anybody?
Yeah, that was the other thing, too. We didn't hear from anybody on that. At
yeah,
that point.
I mean, right. Somebody should be at the podium saying, here's what happened. And there should be a statement from the White House. And it was like there was this deafening silence over that whole thing. And everybody was asking questions. Who's running the show?
Yep.
And who made that call? Then it makes you, by the way, also review that Lloyd Austin thing, which, by the way, is on him. It's on Lloyd Austin first. But is he thinking, well, nobody's in charge anyway. Who would I tell that I'm going to be out for surgery? With that whole thing. If nobody's in charge, okay, I'll just be under the knife. I'll call somebody in my office. Maybe they'll find out.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. By the way, the big, beautiful, whether it's natural or due to makeup,
Or
Bill did
it could be a thyroid issue.
did pass the committee 17-16, and so it moves forward. And Chip Roy said there is some movement on some of moving up the cuts forward. I don't know if it changes the entire bill. He did not say it. I don't have much hope at all.
I don't have much hope. He was one of those that voted present on that committee, on the budget committee.
He voted present, not for.
Right.
Present.
Right.
Yes, just to get it through committee.
Right.
So we'll see where that goes. I did see Mike Johnson say, we'll work through the Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
That means it'll be done by Friday, right?
Right, yeah. If we have to, we won't take a 3-day weekend. Working class America's going, I'm sorry, what?
We'll get to that coming up. I do want to play. We want to play some audio here, and we'll go back to over the weekend before the former president's medical announcement that he has prostate cancer that has metastasized to the bone. But this is Jake Tapper talking to David Axelrod and Van Jones before all of this. And I think Axelrod blames Biden to begin with. If Biden had cognitive problems, which we believe he did, it's obvious he did, that's on the family. That's not on him.
Right.
Any of us who have dealt with people that have cognitive problems, they think they're okay.
Yeah,
they think they're okay, and they're not.
Right,
That's the people that are close to you. But basically, it's your family.
Yeah,
because they're the ones that really know. But here's part of the discussion that they had over the weekend.
You were on the record in 2022 voicing concerns about Biden's age and ability. Whom do you blame for the decision of him to run for re-election and the decision to hide his declining abilities as much as they were able to?
Well, look, at the top end, you have to blame him because he made the decision. But he was, and your book reflects this in many different ways, he was shielded by a coterie of advisors and his family. They were in this confirmation bubble, and they tried to shield the world from his decline, and they tried to shield him from his own standing and his polling numbers and so on. And so at the end of the day, I have to point the finger at the people around him who didn't do him a service by encouraging him to continue. I think it was obvious to the public. It may not have been obvious to a lot of politicians. I actually think it was, but it wasn't politically it wasn't politically wise in their judgment to speak out. But it was obvious to the American people, even before that debate, that the president was just too old. He would have been closer to 90 than 80 if he had won re-election, and he already was showing decline. So I blame the people around him because real loyalty, and it's hard when you work for President Jake to tell them hard truths, but real loyalty demanded that they say, Mr. President, it's just not there and it's not in your interest, and it's better for you, the country, and the Democratic Party if you leave now.
Van, I remember how emotional you were in the immediate moments after the June 27th, 2024 debate because of what you saw on the stage. And with all this new reporting coming out, and I should disclose that I gave both of you copies of the book so you would have a little bit more information. Do you feel like you were duped, Van? Like, how do you feel?
First, this book is extraordinary. I don't care who you are, left, right, or otherwise. Anybody who cares about this country and about just the dynamics of power, this is the emperor's new clothes. playing itself out in real time. Everybody knew, but everyone was afraid to say, except for David Axelrod for 2 years, that something was wrong here. And so, I was shocked. I love Joe Biden. I don't like him. I love him. I got a chance to work with him when I was a part of the Obama administration and loved him more every day. I was shocked to see his condition when he came out, and so was the world. And that wasn't the first time he was in that condition. The book makes it very, very clear. There are people who knew and said nothing. And that is a crime against this republic. And I think the Democrats are going to pay for a long time for being a part of what is now being revealed to be a massive cover-up.
Well, why would anybody on his staff believe the former president's staff believe that they should come forward when everyone in the mainstream media was saying that it was deep fake, cheap fakes, that none of it was true? Where was the pressure if the media was saying there's nothing wrong?
Right.
And conservatives and Republicans were saying, and the American public, obviously there's something wrong. But the media was saying, nope. It's all a right-wing conspiracy theory, which, again, was a lie. But why would you feel any pressure if you were part of his administration? This goes back again to the family. This goes back to Jill Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I won't say Hunter because he's in left field somewhere.
Well,
This goes to his immediate family, starting with Joe Biden. She knew.
Yeah.
She knew he didn't have the ability, and she pushed him forward to do it.
Well, and I'd been saying that for a while because those of us, the millions of us who have family members, and we're the part-time caretakers. We have full-time professional caretakers helping them. We see it early on, and making that transition is never easy. But you come to a point where you have to make that transition, where you have to say there has to be full-time care. There has to be more care and attention given to this particular issue, and you draw the line and say, okay, they can't, do this anymore. They can't live on their own anymore, whatever it's going to be. And when you're talking about somebody who's in the role of President of the United States, you have a duty as First Lady. You have a duty as a spouse to speak up and say, his care is of utmost importance. That's something, and treatment, all of that is going to be handled by the family and professional caretakers. And in the meantime, the country is going to have to make a decision on moving forward without him. And there is no, in my mind, there could be no other play, but there was clearly.
Remember her? He was attacked. H-U-R. If you missed it Friday, we're not going to go back.
Special prosecutor her. Yes.
Special prosecutor her.
Yeah.
I mean, he was eviscerated
Right?
by the media, by
Right.
Democrats,
Right.
by the Biden administration.
Oh, yeah.
This guy's a hack. And now we know because the tape is out. Part of the tape is out. We know he should not have been president of the United States. We said it back then. If you are not mentally capable of going to trial, you're not mentally capable of being president of the United States.
That was the first major crack in that entire equation. Again, we all saw it from the beginning and had our own opinions about it. But when Special Prosecutor Herr put that in the report, and you could see it, and now you hear it from over the weekend, and it was very clear. And then if it wasn't clear then, and you were living under a rock, then by the time that debate ended, it was disastrous. Look, I don't believe it for a second from Van Jones. I was shocked. None of them were shocked. What they're doing now is, oh, well, I couldn't. Nobody spoke up. Nobody said anything. Now, after that debate, they all went, oh, yeah, this isn't going to work. But the debate happened, make no mistake, because people like Van Jones and others in the media propped Joe Biden up.
And I think you and I both said at the time, this is what sent the Democrats over the edge, because we saw him in worse cognitive states before that ever happened that they just ignored.
Right. The debate, because here's the thing. Here's the difference. They ignored that. You can't ignore the first major presidential debate, and one that no one knew for a while was even going to happen. And then when they came out with the rules and everything, and there's going to be whatever it was, 2 or 3 commercials and everything else, you expect him to go in the evening that long, back and forth, without any issues?
Yeah, we said that.
Really?
Yeah, we said it's.
You should make an excuse, because remember what they were doing. They, on the rules thing, throwing things. Basically, it was kind of like Kamala trying to, make sure that Joe Rogan wasn't going to have her on. You put out these conditions, the other side is never going to meet, and that's exactly, what we thought. Not only they would end up doing, quite possibly, but they should end up doing. But it's good that it did happen. The problem is, again, you get to a point of, Nancy making the call. Boom, he's out. Kamala's in. Well, why is he still the president of the United States?
Yeah.
If he's not capable of running for office, he's not capable, certainly, of running the country.
And that's where they came out and said, well, he's out because of his poll numbers. No, he wasn't.
No.
And, and anybody who has dealt with this knows that morning time can be a bad time. But then when you wake up, you can be a lot better than when you start getting tired in the afternoon and early evening. We all know that. And, it's anybody who has gone through this, and many of you have, it's tough to pull the car keys from your parents.
Right, or to move them out of their home. They've lived
to
in
move them out of
forever.
home. To take away their ability to do their own finances.
Right.
Those are huge things that you look at, because you're taking away a person's life and autonomy at that particular point.
Right.
Those are heavy decisions, but we've all made them based on what's the best for that person who we truly love.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, and I know you can't either, and neither can anybody else who has dealt with this with their parents or another loved one, that you would sit there and even consider for 1 second, yeah, but let's do another term as president of the United States.
Oh, my gosh. Look, you make decisions on it starts with small decisions, even smaller than being able to drive. Okay, let's hire somebody to do their lawn for them so they're not out there feeling like they have to do their lawn. Yeah. Let's hire somebody to come into the house and clean. Let's hire, let's do what we can. Because, again, as you mentioned, you're trying to allow them to maintain their autonomy to the point where it's safe. And when it's no longer safe, you have to make much larger decisions, and you go through that. My gosh, on the level of president of the United States,
no.
How do you not care about the American people? Oh, that's the problem. There you have it right there. They don't care about the American people, and that's where you draw that line, is they don't think like we do. I just don't know how your brain functions in a way where you can say, nah, it'll be fine. We can cover it up until January 20th of next year, and somebody else will be president. After they basically kicked him to the curb and he couldn't run. You've got to make a move, and by the way, it should be very quick so that something is done. They had an opportunity there, not only if they're going to abide by their identity politics, to have the first woman of color be president, because Kamala Harris would have been sworn in. A lot of people would have been against her being president, but the left wasn't going to let that happen. The Biden family clearly wasn't going to let that happen.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More audio cuts coming up after the former president's diagnosis with prostate cancer that has metastasized to the bones. Even, whether it's CNN or News Nation, everybody asking the question, well, when did this happen? And because we all know that there was a huge cover-up over his cognitive problems, now the question is, was there a cover-up on this too, which is a totally legit
It has to
concern.
be asked. It has to be asked.
Yep. And so we'll get to that and more coming up.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Happy Monday.
45 years ago yesterday, Mount St. Helens blew.
Yeah.
Yep. Remember when that happened?
Yep.
It's funny because I see a lot of the geologists that they've been interviewing, because there's just a ton of stuff on YouTube over the weekend on that. And I'm thinking to myself, none of them were even born when it happened.
Yeah. No, that's true. That is true.
And I did do my yearly watch while I was doing a bunch of other stuff of the St. Helens movie, the HBO St. Helens movie.
Oh, yeah.
With Art Carney.
Yeah, right.
As Harry Truman.
Right.
I mean, it's a, you look back at it, you're like, okay, it's not exactly modern effects.
Well,
it is from 1981, but he's great in that role of Harry Truman. Now, there's a lot of stuff that isn't true. Like they always have to have a love story in it.
Yeah.
David Johnston, they called David Jackson because his family didn't want him. He was the Johnston Observatory, which you can't get to right now. The road is washed out. That's, where you sit and you look, what are you, about 4 miles away, 6 miles away? You look right into the middle of the crater. It's like, and that's where he was. And, of course, probably incinerated, at that point. But, they had the stupid love story in it. But Art Carney is great in it. So if you ever get a chance to watch it, I think it's on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
I didn't see it till I had moved to Portland. I never even knew the movie existed. It was an HBO movie. It really didn't do much. And I saw it when I was living in Portland. They played it on one of the stations, right around the time that, right around May 18th.
Yeah.
As every year, anybody who lives around that area, talks about it. But that's one thing, man, I tell you. I see that movie, and I think about that, and there's not much I regret in life. But when I took geology in college and took a pass-fail and didn't care about it, who cares about rocks? Wow. I have such an interest. I would love to study volcanoes. That would be a great job. Maybe.
That ended up being the case with a lot of people, a lot of us, where we took geology and it was like just another class. And like, I'm never going to use this stuff. And then not long after high school, and it really isn't long, you start seeing it's like, oh, man, I totally should have done that for a living. I would have never quit. Yeah.
It's like what they should have done in the beginning of the class was blow up a mini volcano. That would have got my attention.
Well, yeah.
But when they go through all the different scientific names of the rocks, you're like, I don't care.
Right.
Well, this all causes volcanoes to blow up. Show me more.
Right. Yeah.
You're blowing stuff up. I want to know about it.
Yeah, and for the the vast number of people that don't live anywhere near a volcano, they're like, yeah, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care. And then you get older, and it's like, okay, here's why I should care.
And it's called, if you live in the United States, Yellowstone.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's the same thing of when I forgot, 10th or 11th grade. And I just, I went to summer school every year. I didn't care about school. If you told me to study, I do the opposite. And so I took chemistry, and the teacher that I had just, remember the overhead machines?
Oh, yeah.
Would just write on the overhead, start at the beginning, like, well, I had no interest. She wrote on the overhead, and you took the notes of what appeared on the screen from the overhead.
Well, and that always, using the overhead, of course, you had to turn out the lights. And then the teacher would be writing on that. It always put me to sleep. I mean, it was like, oh, this is nice. We turn the lights down, and then they're just discussing whatever class I'm in. I don't know. I don't even know what class I'm in right now. But apparently there's numbers up there. It might be math. I don't know. It's none of my business. And you just doze out completely and tune out. Then a few years down the road, it's like, maybe I should go back to school.
Well, I got an F. So, of course, I had to go to summer school.
Yeah.
Walk in first day, teacher's got the Bunsen burner going, combining baking soda with vinegar to shoot off rockets.
Right.
We're blowing up stuff. You want to know how this works? Yes.
Please tell me.
I got a 100 on the final exam and an A for the course.
Yeah, wow.
That's a difference in catching a young teenager's.
Well,
he said, is this guy an intellectual or is he a Beavis and Butthead?
Yeah.
And they realized he's Beavis and Butthead. He's Gary Butthead.
Yeah.
So blow up stuff. You'll get his attention. He'll get a 100 on the final exam and an A in the course.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my parents and coming back saying, and they were angry at me.
Mm-hmm.
The only time in recorded history where a person went back and showed their parents they got an A and a 100 on the final exam, and my parents got ticked off.
Whoa.
Because they said, get away from us.
Yeah.
You're not, you wasted
This
your
is
summer.
proof. This is proof that we knew you could do it.
Right.
Yeah.
This proves you can do it, and you're just a lazy SOB.
Yeah.
Trying to get out of work.
Yeah. Your parents were cool.
Which was true. Geology, I took it my first year of college, and I just took it pass fail. I'm like, I don't care about it. I probably got a D if you would have graded me on it, because I just didn't care.
Right. Yeah.
And I think about it now, and I'm like, man, what was wrong with me? And I'm going to assume the teacher was boring. Okay, I'm not going to blame me.
Yeah. I'm going to, not only am I going to assume it, I'm going to insist on it.
Exactly. It was their fault.
Yeah.
And besides that, while doing a ton of show prep over the weekend, watched a lot of golf and cleaned the house, did pool work, trying to keep the Ducks from coming back again. The Ducks are now starting to attack again, and worried about storms that never hit my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never got any rain. I expected rain Saturday and Sunday. Got neither. Didn't get a drop.
Well, we were supposed to make one trip, and it didn't. Ended up we had to put that off for a week. So we took the RV out, took it down to a lake near my in-laws, and set it up. And they were calling for some rain. We got some rain. Then the second day they were calling for rain, and then all of a sudden it just went away. It just didn't happen. It looked like it was heading for us, but it didn't.
Yeah, it sure did.
And but I mean, Sunday evening, north of here, just north of our studios, we had a tornado warning active at one point, and that was about an hour after they issued the tornado watch. So it really conditions really kind of changed fairly quickly and then evolved into hail for people north of us. And they're calling for that, in fact, again on quite possibly on Monday. There is a very strong chance of severe weather here in the southern plains, so North Texas and into Oklahoma. Covers a large part, that likely scenario covers a large part of Oklahoma. So everybody needs to be aware.
I went to sleep so early yesterday knowing the storms were coming in. Didn't even watch the last 9 holes of the PGA Championship. I went, nope, go to sleep. You're tired, go to sleep now. And 8:45, I woke up.
Yeah.
When I woke up, I said, I'm probably have to call the guys and tell them I won't even leave for work at 11 because I was looking at where the storms are coming in. The baseball-size hail was heading my way. It was probably about 40, 45 miles west. That thing almost went north. I mean, it's still going west, but, I mean, it just took a track towards the north and missed me completely. I mean, I didn't get even a drop of rain. And there I am saying I was like a couple of minutes from going out and cleaning the other side of the garage so I could move the other car in because bring the cars in. This could be baseball-sized tennis ball kind of hail and got nothing. But, you know, those are the odds when you live in Tornado Alley and you sit there and you say, but what are the odds that the storm is going to hit my little 1/6 of an acre lot?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get through it, right?
Yeah, right.
Hurricanes, it's like you can't do that for hurricanes, can you?
No, you cannot.
All right, coming up here, more. We got a ton of different audio on what happened over the weekend, whether it was before the diagnosis of former President Biden coming out with the prostate cancer that has metastasized to the bone, the her report that somehow was leaked to Axios, and they got a hold of it. What Comer is planning on doing, the entire, what was it? I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, the big beautiful bill. What's going on with that? Trump and Walmart.
Yeah, well.
What was the other thing? I had another one that I wanted to get. Oh, the Mexican.
Oh, the Navy ship.
The
Mexican Navy ship.
I woke up to that. I went to sleep again Saturday night.
Yeah.
I'm old and I go to sleep early now. But Saturday night, I woke up.
Yeah.
Middle of the night, whenever I woke up, when I first looked at it, I thought it was AI.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was
real. Yeah.
I was like, oh, it was ship. I go, yeah, right. You know, went back to sleep, woke up, see it all over the place. This is true?
Right. Well,
how does that happen?
They believe it lost power and caught in the current, caught in the very strong current of the East River, which moved it right into that bridge.
So it wasn't supposed to go under the bridge?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay, all right.
Some reports saying it was actually even headed in the wrong direction, but if that, I don't know at what point the currents carried it the way again of the bridge. We do know that, but whether or not it clearly was headed in the wrong direction. It shouldn't have gone anywhere near that bridge.
The report from from the Trump administration that Epstein killed himself. Iran foreign minister vows nuclear enrichment will continue. That Palm Springs bombing suspect. Is that not the weirdest thing ever?
It really is. Very strange. It's, again, it gets into the motivation of what's in the minds of an individual.
And if you haven't heard it, he apparently believed that people should not be born without their permission.
Right. Yeah. Because when you read fertility clinic, in the past, we've seen attacks on abortion clinics. We've seen, things like that. You read fertility clinic. When it first broke, I thought, do they have that right? A fertility clinic? And then you learn more about the person they say is responsible. Wow. Injuring a number of people. The bomber himself is dead. But just wild. Because, again, how do you know what's in the minds of people and how far they're willing to go? Are they willing to act on it, and to what extent?
Yeah. I mean, someone comes up and says that to you, you go, well, you're nuts. Get away from me.
Right.
Nobody should be born unless they give permission for themselves to be born.
Yeah.
Huh? What are you talking about?
It doesn't work that way.
Get away from me.
Yeah.
Wow. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators with authority generally have two options when it comes to sourcing freight. Brokers on the spot market or directly from the source, the shipper. As any trucker with relatively recent experience with spot freight knows, the highs of working the load boards can be really high. On the other side of that coin, however, when the market flips in favor of shippers, it can be tough to keep your business afloat working with brokers. The smallest carriers with direct customers, however, can hang on through tough times or even prosper as long as demand for their customers' product remains at least somewhat stable. Owner-operators in it for the long haul make direct business with customers a principal goal. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, it was Friday night that the Republicans in the House said they're going to be investigating what happened and calling people to testify. Here's Representative James Comer on with Fox News over the weekend.
You are going and looking at who is controlling this auto pen, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
Yeah, that's hard evidence. Early in the President Biden's term as president, it clearly shows that he was in significant mental decline. It questions who was actually making the decisions. So what we found is not just with the pardons he issued, but many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient. Many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the auto pen. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the auto pen, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions. He wasn't coherent. We think we've identified who the staffers are. Jason, you all have done great work with that over at Heritage Oversight. We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the auto pen. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition. But we want to find out who was actually making the decisions in the White House during the last 9 months of the Biden administration when he was clearly in mental decline.
How do you argue that?
There really is no way that you can.
The executive orders meant to stall the Trump administration. Every executive order now is called into question. Every pardon is caused, is
every decision he made.
Yep. Everything is called into question. And if you're a Democrat, how can you debate it?
Right.
And I really believe, and I know it's a sensitive thing, it would be with anyone, his prognosis with the prostate cancer. But the Republicans can simply say, this isn't about Joe Biden.
It's about who covered it up.
It's about who covered it up. Clearly, if he had cognitive problems, somebody covered it up. And now the book is saying he had I won't even say if anymore.
Yeah.
Because everyone's in agreement.
No one's really even debating the fact that
Right.
his cognitive issues were in place for years.
Right. Because the cognitive reasons are why her would not prosecute and why he was out of the presidential race.
Right.
So we know it's no longer if, it's how bad was it and who hit it.
Right.
And it's really
and who
amazing.
made the decision on the auto
Yep.
pen? Who
Okay.
was
Yep.
making decisions? Who was running the country?
And what's Democrats' argument against Republicans looking into this?
I don't see one.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Man, there's so much information out there right now. I mean, I just saw this from Fox News, posted 16 hours ago. Shocking news. Joe Biden audio drops, and even Michael LaRosa, Dr. Biden, Joe Biden's former press secretary, admits the White House was, quote, allergic to transparency, and then not in quotes, but this comes from Fox News. He says they lied about even the smallest things, dog bites, weddings, and built a culture of cover-ups that makes Biden's mental decline look even worse. I'll have to get that specific story. I just saw that as we were coming in from the break there.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow. Let's first get to this is James Comer.
All right.
On Fox News over the weekend. Did I play this? Did I play the auto pen?
Did we play that on the air, or were we previewing that? Play it again. It's worth playing again.
Oh, okay. I played Comer then. Gary's cognitive abilities are now under question.
Well,
okay, we did play
and
Comer.
proof Eric doesn't listen to the show.
All right, let's get where do I want to start out here with? All right, this is from CNN. Let me go to the one up top here.
All right.
I've got a couple of things here that I want to make sure I get in. All right, this is CNN talking to an oncologist on CNN yesterday, and this just shows you where this is all going, which is why it's not going away.
Right.
When I initially saw on social media when I woke up, it's like, well, Republicans now can't do it because Biden has cancer. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This probably will make it even become a bigger story because now that it's accepted that the cover-up was there for his cognitive problems, the next question is something that is very rare that you, not that it doesn't happen, but it's still very rare that you go from the beginning of prostate cancer to it metastasizing to the bones normally takes a couple of years. So that question is out there. And the question now, because of what is already known and accepted, the question itself becomes a statement.
Yeah.
But here's part of the interview with CNN. Here we go.
All right. Also with me right now is Dr. Jamin Brombat. He is a urologist, a surgeon. He specializes in treating prostate cancer. Doctor, I understand you're out of Orlando as well, right?
Yep.
Thank you so much for being with me. All right. So how do you assess this news based on the statement coming from Joe Biden's office that he has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer that has advanced to his bones?
Yeah, obviously we're in shock because he is our former president. But when I was going through my results on my computer tab as I was leaving the office today, I'm on call today, I had two patients that tomorrow I'm going to tell them the exact same news that Joe Biden got, earlier this week. So you have to take a step back. Like, prostate cancer is very common. Like, over 300,000 men are diagnosed with prostate cancer in the U.S. a year. Because there's such a high volume, there's a lot of research dedicated to, its treatment. He, unfortunately, it's already spread to his bones, but if you look at the thousands of men that are diagnosed with the same type of prostate cancer as him, the good news is there's some great treatment options. And from what I hear, currently they're saying it's hormone sensitive, which means the treatment options are even more for him. So the prognosis in the general man that we find this is actually pretty good. But at the same time, you have to take a moment to pause because everything is personalized to the patient. So you have to take into account what the reporter mentioned, all the different conditions that he has. You want to make sure that the treatments you're giving for the prostate cancer don't compromise the other health issues. So everything has to be tailored to the individual, to the patient, and in this case, President Joe Biden.
Exactly. All of my follow-ups based on what you just said that I'd like to ask you, though. So even with that statement that it's hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management, what are the treatment options when you're talking about those characteristics?
So the treatment options initially start with like putting a brake on the cancer, and that's done with medications that pretty much, we call it male menopause, or like they're called androgen deprivation therapy. So you try to stop the hormones that feed the cancer. That's how it initially starts. Then what the next treatments could include steroid treatments. There's immune therapies that can be done. There's also medicines that target like things in the bones. But all of those are medical management. Rarely there's an option of surgery or radiation. So there's all these different medications that can be taken through the IV or by mouth to help control the cancer based on where it's spread.
So when you say medical management, so that he remains comfortable, is that what I'm getting here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, with the treatments that are out there for when it's spread to the bones, it's very difficult to get the cancer to zero or cancer-free. So what you try to do is either slow it down to continue the quality of life that he has. But theoretically, if he responds great to all the treatments and even the stuff in the bones can decrease or stay stable. So really, it's too early to tell. Over the next few months is a better way to tell. And really, it's going to be based on how he responds. So they're saying it's hormone sensitive, but really, you don't really know how sensitive it is until you start doing repeat lab work and then start doing repeat imaging to see how he is truly responding internally when it comes to these cancer treatments.
Okay, and so those treatments that you just described, you really are talking about arresting the cancer, but not necessarily getting rid of it.
Yes.
Okay, and that he's 82, how would that dictate how he and his medical team make a decision about the treatment options?
I think he's not my patient, but if I had a patient like him with all the medical stuff that he has, including whether it's the physical or the mental, you really have to take that into account because all these treatments do have potential side effects. One of the biggest side effects that I see in my patients that get these hormone treatments could be cognitive changes. So you have to kind of balance that.
And that was the part that a lot of people picked up on from that doctor talking about, wondering, okay, how long does this actually, how long has this been around? Was the question.
Right.
And then on News Nation, you had urologist Dr. David Schusterman on News Nation. Here's what he had to say.
I have to say that in my expertise as a urologist, prostate cancer like this doesn't come on just overnight. This happens over a long period of time. And typically you would see a PSA elevation, you would do a biopsy, and then you would do a treatment for the prostate cancer. Then after the prostate cancer is treated, it can actually get worse and spread to different parts of the body. And so it's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups and not notice a PSA elevation over the past, but this is what I typically would see in a VA hospital where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine. Even in the, even in the inner city populations, we
I
wouldn't
see.
see
So
it
you're saying
this bad.
even in a medically neglected population, it would be surprising to have a surprise diagnosis with a Gleason score of 9. So you're saying that certainly as
That's
he was
correct.
serving in the Oval Office, you believe that he knew that he had prostate cancer, and even potentially as he was running in 2020 before he assumed office?
Well, most likely he had prostate cancer for a long time, and the aggressive prostate cancer such as this at age 80 grows over a long period of time. I mean, usually it takes from the first diagnosis of prostate cancer to spread would take 5 to 10 years.
Again, there's always exceptions to the rule, and he said not very likely. And we've talked about other cases of people we know that it has spread quicker on it. But this just leads to, and again, it doesn't stand alone. It stands with the fact that now it is the consensus on the right and left that they covered up his cognitive abilities. They covered up the fact that they knew that he was not capable of being president of the United States. And now the question is, who was making the decisions in the White House? But if they covered up his cognitive abilities and knew he didn't have what it takes, and they lied and they attacked people that said, no, he's got a big, big problem, then everyone knows that if they knew this, and this thing has been going on for a long time, that they covered this up too. And that means the doctor lied. Now, did I see that the doctor did not give him a PSA test last time?
That would have been February of last year.
Or was that that was a cognitive test.
Yeah, that was a cognitive test.
Did they even mention the
that was in
PSA?
question. Fit for office is basically what we heard, and I don't remember anything on the PSA being released one way or the other. It may have. I don't remember that.
That'll be easy to find out, though. That question will be asked.
Well, that's the thing. So, because the question becomes, with that treatment, what they do is one of the doctors you just heard described it, and this happened with a family member going through the same thing, is they start with a hormonal treatment, basically, to lower the testosterone, which is what would support the growth of that cancer. So you're trying to, again, if it's hormone related, mitigate that the best you can, right? And one of the side effects is, at that point, cognitive issues. Because if you add that to age-related issues otherwise, mentally, then you're talking about with as aggressively as it would be applied at roughly 80 years of age. I got a family member that's, again, same age, roughly. I think maybe a year or two, maybe younger than Biden. He's 80 now. But that changes you. I remember the first time seeing my family member, and this would have been months into the treatment. He was very different. Still, he kept a positive mood about everything and everything else, but you could tell that it was having its toll. The treatment alone, just the hormonal treatment alone, was taking its toll. So the question becomes, and it's a valid question, the American people deserve the truth. Is this at all related to any cognitive issues, which now, by most accounts, I don't know anybody questioning whether or not Biden had cognitive issues. The question would be, who ran the country, who made decisions, and to what extent were his cognitive issues in place and when? This is about everybody else surrounding him who propped him up, not about him, not about Joe Biden himself. This is about the people who covered it up and also quite possibly made decisions that governed our lives and made those decisions and carried that out through auto pen illegally. That's what we're looking at, quite possibly.
From the Washington Post, no, Joe Biden's PSA levels were not explicitly released in any health report. While the small nodule was found in his prostate during a recent physical exam, leading to a diagnosis of prostate cancer, the specifics of his PSA levels were not made public, according to ABC News. His office stated that the diagnosis was based on a Gleason score of 9, indicating an aggressive form of disease, reports the Washington Post. So there you go.
Yeah.
You would think that if you're going to release a physical on the President of the United States, who was a man in his 80s, that the PSA would be a normal part of release, wouldn't you?
Right.
It's a normal part if you're over 50,
especially
55.
if it's within range. You certainly would, right?
Yeah, you want it. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, look, for a guy his age, he's he's doing well. You want all the markers in that complete blood count to reflect that, to support that, and you put that out there. He's doing great.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I told you I found that story on X from Fox News about Jill Biden's former press secretary who says we're allergic to transparency. I found the interview. So we'll have that coming up following the top of the hour. And so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
There's so many topics.
Busy weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy week.
Mm-hmm.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Hello.
All right, I found the audio that I was looking for. I had seen the story on Fox News about Jill Biden's former press secretary on Fox News over the weekend, and said that the First Family was allergic to actual transparency. Here's part of that conversation going back and forth. His name is Michael LaRosa, former Jill Biden press secretary. Here we go.
So what would have happened, and we've been pondering this question all morning long, Michael, what would have happened if this audio that the Bidens fought so hard to keep under wraps, had this come out when it should have come out right after he was interviewed and the transcripts came out back in 2024? How would that have changed the race potentially? Would Biden have dropped out? Been forced to?
I heard you guys talking about that, and I kind of chuckled because, Rachel, if you only knew how hard it was. I mean, this was a group in the White House who were allergic to transparency. And I go back to and I'm just talking about like just in the East Wing. I mean, the very first day walking into the White House, the usher was fired, and I couldn't get reporters straight answers because nobody would give me straight answers.
So wait, Michael, what does that tell you? Does that tell you that even when they came on, and by the way, you know well because you were the press secretary, and I was saying he wasn't fit to run back in 2020 when we saw what we saw on the campaign trail. And I got hit hard by your office.
By me.
By you. I was trying to be nice. But now we're in the era of transparency, so we can be honest about this. I was hit hard by that. But are you saying that right from the get-go, they knew there were questions about his mental fitness, and they had a culture of hiding things?
Well, I'm not not suggesting anything about the mental fitness part. What I am suggesting, based on your conversation earlier, was that it was not intuitive to them. It was not their style to be transparent about anything. They took days and months to be deliberative. And I'm talking about the small things, about when the dog bites occurred or about the wedding with the grandkids. They got caught lying to the press about press coverage because they were so scared to be transparent about anything. And I said to myself at some point, if it's this hard to get them to just be transparent and disclose things and to just be upfront from the beginning about anything, even the small things,
right.
My God, what would happen if there were big things?
So yes or no, would he have been forced? Do you think he would have had to drop out, just as a Democrat?
I don't think they ever would have released the tapes, but no, I don't think he would have anyway.
You don't think that would have been enough for him to drop out?
No.
I mean, you know Jill better than anybody, and I've been, as a former political spouse, very critical of her because I think, it's one thing to defend your husband. I get that. It's another thing when your husband is losing his mental capacities to put him out there into situations. Sometimes he actually looks frightened, like that, because he knows his mind's not working, and it's embarrassing and humiliating. Why did she put him on right now? Why does she keep putting him on The View?
I do think that they probably fear, and if they do, they're right to fear that the history is being written right now about their legacy. And I said this back in February of 2024 when he was still in the race, that if he loses to Donald Trump, much of his legacy will be erased because it was a really big gamble to take to run again, because the media, historians, and Democrats will only define him by whether he wins or loses. And now that they are being blamed for that, they're probably feeling the fight or flight mentality where they have to get out there and try to define it. My question to them is, why are you just starting now? I would have been starting 10 months ago to start to define his legacy as soon as he dropped out of the race.
There you go. Well, luckily, I don't have to define my legacy.
My legacy is none of my business. I won't be around, so I won't care.
I really don't care.
Yeah, I don't care about my legacy. What do I care? I'm not here.
People will lie about me, and when that happens, people will say, "Who?"
Yeah, what?
Who are you talking about?
What? Who? We're supposed to care why? And I saw it over the last several hours since the diagnosis was revealed, the back and forth on social media. Well, they're doing this now. They're revealing the diagnosis now. Maybe it's been in place for a while. They're doing it now to get cover from all of the activities surrounding Jake Tapper's book and pretty much the implosion of the leftist media who defended Joe Biden's cognitive issue claims. The thought basically was being conveyed, again, this is just anecdotal, what I witnessed on social media, that, well, they're doing it now to see if they can quiet all of that. Well, actually what you do, if that were the case, it's a bad move because now you bring up more questions. Because the question would be, well, all right, is it true that it's something that was acute and happened very quickly? Or were they lying about this too? Or were they lying about this because that was part of, including the treatment for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The cognitive issues. That is, all of these are fair questions that the American people deserve the answers to. And it's not about Joe Biden himself. It's about the cover-up. It's about the organized cover-up. And for those in the media and the leftist activist media claiming, well, they hid it from us. They didn't hide anything from me.
Yeah, we know
my eyes saw it. I didn't need to. And I can't tell you what's causing the cognitive issues. I can tell you that there are cognitive issues based on simple observation, which journalists, they're not really journalists, but if you claim to be a journalist, you're supposed to be pretty good at.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't hide anything from me, but they did because you and I, our beliefs, if they would have attacked us, if they had the opportunity, they would have attacked us and said, we're lying, we're making stuff up. This is a cheap fake, a deep fake, whatever other fakes there are out there.
Yeah.
And so they got him as far as they possibly could by lying to the American public, which was their goal to begin with. Now, they didn't succeed because he didn't run for president of the United States, but they got awfully close.
Yeah.
If they could have got out of that debate,
how
close would they have gotten?
Right.
And remember, because of this, because of the line, they took the democracy away from the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No democracy in the Democratic Party.
Right.
Ask David Hogg. But
Congratulations, you've been elected vice chair. Now get out.
No, but wait, I was voted in and I did everything right. We just figured out you're a white man.
Yeah.
You got to go. You're a white man. But democratically, no. Democratically means you're a white man. You can't win.
Yeah,
Don't
sorry.
you understand what democracy is?
Exactly. Don't you know? Come on, you know how this works.
So, we'll keep you updated on the latest. But this is just going to make it go. And again, the Republicans, you come out and you say, how dare they go after Joe Biden? We're not going after Joe Biden.
Not going after Joe Biden.
After we're trying to find out who hid what happened. And then you're going to get, yes, but you have a wife who is suffering because of the speculation that she was the one closest to him, so she was the one that was ordering the hiding.
Yeah, right.
And enabling the lies that were consistently out there. They'll try anything because, they have no other word. They have no other place to go. They're in a corner,
right?
And you can't defend what happened, and it looks horrible. Not only does it look horrible with the cognitive abilities, but when you have, again, it coming out and saying, this is about a shadow government. This is about people who were not elected. This is about faking. This is a movie.
Yeah.
This is about lying to the American public and somebody else making the decision for the president of the United States, or a group of people making the decision as to what the president of the United States would be doing, and that's a shadow government. And that is, as Van Jones said, a crime against the Republic.
Yeah.
I agree with Van Jones. I swear I'm not becoming a fiscal populist.
Well,
a fiscal socialist populist.
Right.
I swear I'm not. I'm not.
No.
Speaking about a fiscal populist, socialist.
No, yeah.
Which he is not, but Chip Roy on the big, beautiful deal.
Oh, yeah.
You ready?
Okay, here we go. Okay.
Tonight, after a great deal of work and engagement over the weekend, the Budget Committee advanced a reconciliation bill that lays the foundation for much-needed tax relief, border security, and important spending reductions and reforms. You and I, as soon as we saw lays the foundation, said, okay, what does this mean? Importantly, the bill will now move Medicaid work requirements forward and reduce the availability of future subsidies under the Green New Scam. But the bill does not yet meet the moment, leaving almost half of the Green New Scam subsidies continuing. More, it fails to end the Medicaid laundering money scam and perverse funding structure that provides 7 times more federal dollars for each dollar of state spending for the able-bodied relative to the vulnerable. This ultimately increases the likelihood of continuing deficits and non-Obamacare expansion states like Texas expanding in the future. We can and must do better before we pass the final product. He talks about Texas because he is from Texas. As such, I joined with my 3 colleagues to vote present out of respect for the Republican Congress and the president to move the bill forward. It gives us an opportunity to work together this week to get the job done in light of the fact our bond rating was dropped yet again due to historic fiscal mismanagement by both parties. This bill is a strong step forward, and I'm proud of Chairman Arrington, the Speaker, and my colleagues for the work we did to make progress with the White House, but we have more to do to deliver to the American people. I await the final scoring of this before I make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, Moody's, by the way, the financial firm Moody's downgraded us from a AAA down to a AA1, which is a smaller battery, and most of Moody's peers had already graded our score for the U.S., and it's because of the deficit and the debt. And that happened when that happened late Friday. Again, now the market, overnight markets, pre-markets down right now, not in a massive way, but the question would be, is the market waiting on what Congress is going to do and what this ultimate big, beautiful bill ends up looking like in the end? What is it that the president is going to sign? That's, what happens in the House this week, obviously, is a huge part of it getting through the Budget Committee. Now it goes on to the Rules Committee. I haven't seen anywhere where it doesn't look like it will get through it wouldn't pass the Rules Committee. It likely will. Then it goes to a vote and some changes being made between now and Wednesday, over the next few days, to appease people, the fiscal conservatives, like Chip Roy. There's only a few of them. And then we'll see where that goes. And what it looks like, from the Senate side. And then bringing the two together, what that process looks like. The House trying to get it done before Memorial Day weekend this weekend. But the real play is, what does this thing look like by the time it gets to the desk of the president for him to sign it? And I don't know. There really does not seem to be a tremendous concern over the debt, does there? No, there isn't. Yeah. And I think that's where the GOP in the House and the Senate looks at it. I mean, again, you have few that are vocal, but it is just that. It's a few. And they're concerned, but I think leadership, Thune and Johnson, look at this and go, we're not hearing this huge groundswell, so we don't feel that kind of political pressure. If the American people, including our own party, rank and file, aren't screaming at us, then we know we can get away with it.
Yep. 866-98 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. The one thing is they seem to be keeping it quiet exactly what the changes are in the particular budget. And you notice that you had four of the members of Congress still, of the committee, still vote present. They didn't vote for it. They voted present.
Yeah, Chip Roy being one of those. Yeah.
Right, in order to get it through. But as we have said, Republicans, I'm not talking about people that listen to our show because they tend to be more fiscally conservative from what we have found out, the responses we have gotten over the last almost 20 years now. But the Republican Party does not at all care about debt the way they used to.
Right.
Not even close to it. Who was it saying it over the weekend that everybody was, a year ago, everybody was standing, we've got to, we've got to rein in this debt, we've got to do this, and then they get into power and it doesn't seem to be a concern anymore. And it's just the reality of people care what's happening to them right now.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's it. And I don't know where that threshold was, but it's been the case for far too long that too many again rank and file GOP voters are not greatly concerned about the national debt, about the deficit. And I would love to, it would have to be more of a Frank Luntz sit down, not really a poll type survey, because I would love to get into the mindset of, okay, Why is it? Is it that you believe you keep hearing the promise that they're going to do something and you keep buying into the same promise even though they aren't delivering, or you don't personally think it's that big of a deal you think will solve it? I don't know if you're a conservative, how you couldn't care, how this couldn't be a massive issue with you.
You're not a conservative.
That's why, exactly why I phrased it that way. If you're a conservative, I don't know how you don't care. And if you don't care, I don't know how you call yourself a conservative.
Yeah. I think there's a lot less conservatives than there used to be.
Yep.
People, I mean, everybody's going to say that debt isn't good.
Right.
Everybody says debt isn't good for the country.
We need to get it under control,
well,
blah, blah, blah.
They say debt isn't good for themselves, yet they get into it.
Well, and then inevitably, what do we hear? Well, we can solve a big part of it by doing away with foreign aid. It's not even a drop in a drop.
Yeah,
it's not even a portion of a drop.
Well, we had talked
in the bucket
when I think the survey was a year ago or a year and a half ago that said most Republicans believe that by cutting waste and inefficiencies and foreign aid that we can solve the debt problem. And we said, well, they're completely and totally wrong. It can't.
Right.
And I think we saw it with the whole Doge thing, which promised $2 trillion, then went to $1 trillion, now is somewhere between 100 and 150 billion. When they came out with the 150 billion number, they said, yeah, but there's some things we're going to add back on again. And so, as you see here, we're not getting close to touching it. Remember, so much of the Republican budget, like any budget, is based on, what economic growth is going to be over the next 10 years. And if you're at 2.6, 2.8, you might be in a dream world.
Right.
Listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. We're speaking about debt, speaking about economics, things like that, the big, beautiful new bill, and whether Republicans really care about the debt. I don't believe that they do. Otherwise, you would have a group of people standing behind Chuck Roy. There'd be 50 people, 100 people standing behind him, so they don't. Other economic news, though, some clarity, at least from the White House. Absolutely, with what the president said over the weekend, they believe that the consumer pays tariffs.
Yeah.
You saw that over the weekend.
Right.
He didn't say that the cost isn't being passed down to Walmart. He said, eat the tariffs.
Right.
And so what he is saying is it's a tax. It's not a tax on the exporter. It's a tax on the importer.
Yep.
As we've said. And for months upon months upon months, the administration and campaign, probably years, said that it is the foreign countries that will eat the tariffs. We said that was false. The White House admitted that was false by telling Walmart to eat the tariffs.
Right.
Because so it does not get passed on to the consumer. It shows that. It also shows that the White House and the president is concerned and understand that even though the tariffs are at 30%, they do not want that cost being passed down to the consumer.
Right, right.
The other thing is, and Republicans, I hope we're not going here at this point. I was reading from, I think I told you, Charles Payne from Fox Business News was being challenged because of the populist viewpoint of the Republicans and many economists now on the Republican side, which can lean towards socialism. And he was said, since when did we start hating capitalism? And Charles Payne responded, I hate America being a sucker. I hate that Americans are hooked on crap they don't need and have been told their purpose is to pump up corporate profits, not save and invest for themselves and their family. I'm not enamored with living solely to make China's middlemen rich. Okay, so he posted that over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This follows the president talking about the fact of the dolls. We talked about the dolls.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having 30 dolls to choose from, 2 dolls to choose from, and they may cost more, which again was an admission when he said that. The tariffs, again, are paid by the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And we had said, look, this is basic economics, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
When there's a cost down through the supply chain, whether it is minimum wage, whether it is a new tax, whatever, the end consumer, whether it's a corporate tax, the end consumer always pays the freight.
Yep.
That's what happens. They always pay the freight, or if there isn't freight to be paid, it means less economic growth for the retailer selling that product, and or people getting laid off because less of that product is being sold. That's basic economics.
Right.
And anybody who does not apply that is BSing you about economics.
Yep.
Because economics is how people respond to incentive, and we always act the same.
Yep.
It also shows, and we had said this to the administration when it comes to China. Yeah, they're ripping us off. You got to do something about it. But understand the population is extremely sensitive to prices right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have this long-term plan. They care about short-term.
Right.
You could see over the weekend the president was concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole thing with Republicans saying, you don't need this.
Yeah, right.
I agree with Charles Payne when he said, now, I don't agree with that Americans are hooked on crap they don't need and have been told their purpose is to pump up corporate profits by buying stuff. Nobody buys stuff to boost up corporate profits.
No.
They buy it because they want it. So I have no idea where he's headed there. I believe Americans are not saving enough and investing enough for themselves and their families. It doesn't mean that government policy should be to restrict what people can buy.
Right.
I don't like it when any economist or politician or any economist trying to enact public policy or influence public policy says you don't need that. You may not need it. It may be a moral case, but it is not a case for the government to enact a policy to tell you what you need and what you don't need.
If Dave Ramsey is telling you that, that's one thing. If someone in the government is telling you that, that's a totally different thing. You know, if you're getting financial advice saying, you don't need to spend money on that. Don't spend your money on that. But it's the Bernie Sanders approach when you say, you don't need all these choices of deodorants.
Yes. Government's job is not to tell me what I need. My financial counselor's job is to tell me what I don't need.
Yes,
and what I should be buying.
And I always listen and then respond by saying, shut up, I'm going to get it anyway. But
let me use a better example.
Yeah.
It is always my father's place to tell me what I need and what I don't need.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know, but honestly, hold on a second. You're on to something because it's kind of where my mind was going next, and that is the government treating you like children is the big brother government saying to you, we'll decide what you need. You know, when your parents did that and you were a child, that's one thing. When the big government wants to do that and will decide what you need, you don't need this. Or if you're implying the government should have policy that gives you fewer choices in the marketplace, I have to wonder about your take on capitalism to begin with.
Well, if you tell me we shouldn't be buying from China because they're ripping us off and the government should have a policy in doing it, fine. You might then have wanted to nix TikTok a while back and not keep extending it.
Yeah.
The other point is, if that's what you want to say, we shouldn't be dealing with China and Congress should do something about it, and this is an emergency thing and I'm going to do this, that's fine because they're ripping us off. Don't tell me what I need.
Right.
I don't need the compassionate socialism that got Chris Rock to say President Obama and Michelle are like our mother and father.
Yeah, right.
And that's why we have them, to be our mother and father.
Yeah.
I don't elect any politician to be my mother and my father. None.
Right.
Zero.
Yeah.
If China's a problem because they're doing something illegal, so be it. Eric and I have said they have to be confronted by it.
Yep.
Don't tell me what I need and imply you're going to enact policy by what you believe I need or don't need. That's not why I elect you in a democratic republic.
Right. And, and that's it. And then, again, pushing, I don't care whatever agenda on that, and then just saying, yeah, but you don't need. The government works for us. We'll tell the government what we need from them. And when we quit doing that, when we quit caring, then expect that kind of response that they'll come back with, you don't need this, you don't need that. Well, to what extent? There are a lot of things I could get by with. If you want to get frugal, I'll get all frugal with you all day long. I know how to eat beans and cornbread for days on end. I lived in my car. Well, I can do like Fonzie was doing on that one Sad Christmas episode, and then eating ravioli out of the can. For those under the age of 90.
What's the whole climate change narrative been for the last 50 years?
Right.
You need to have less.
Yep.
Because we care about you.
Yes. We're the government that cares.
Yeah.
Don't forget to wear pants. I mean, it's just, it's that insane. And then people engaging, well, they're right. You don't need, okay, no. If we're going to go down that road, because I really honestly believe that's in part what, Elon Musk, the world's richest man who's fine with living in a cardboard box. He doesn't even care where he sleeps. Finding $2 trillion, I don't think he ever found $2 trillion in cuts. But I said, it's quite possible he went in there with Eric and Gary's approach going, hey, these things, our government shouldn't be involved in these things. Now, that toothpaste is already out of the tube. But if we're going to go down this road of you don't need this and you don't need that, then let's get back to the table on the Doge thing, and I'll tell you how we can be frugal.
Well, Charles Payne writing, I hate that he wasn't even mentioning China at this point. I hate that Americans are hooked on crap they don't need and have been told their purpose is to pump up corporate profits, not save and invest for themselves and their family. And that's the first comment is, but private corporations are pretty much the only chance anyone has at independence.
Yeah.
When you lend them money or buy their equity, you make money when they profit.
Mm-hmm.
So you wish for them to profit by selling the things to American consumers that they sell. This is basic economics.
Yeah.
It's almost as if, and Charles Payne I like.
Yeah.
And it's normally pretty good,
Payne,
but you can see the populism and the socialism slipping in to their defense. He's not saying don't buy from China. He's not saying, look, this is good advice for you. What he's implying is the economic policy of government limiting what you can get is a good policy.
Right.
And it's not.
It isn't. It just isn't.
So who was the one that said that nothing in America is about cheap goods? America wasn't built. Of course it was.
Yeah.
Of course
Was
it
that
was.
Lutnick that said that?
Was it Lutnick? Was it Navarro who said
it? Was one. I think it was one of those two.
Of course, it is one of the purposes. You want to be in the competitive, democratic, capitalist marketplace, and if somebody isn't, again, if someone's cheating, like China, fine, say they're cheating. Don't say your argument should never be, I'm buying stuff I don't need.
Right.
You don't know what I need.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's,
but it's not about what I need in a democracy. It's what I wish to buy with money I have earned. And that's none of your damn business. If it's because somebody's cheating and stealing, you have a legit point at that moment, but not in general.
Right. If we're talking about things that are outside of the law.
Yeah.
But we're talking about capitalism, which is freedom, the free marketplace, and I'm free to choose. And I don't have the government telling me I don't need this and I don't need that. I'll buy it because I want it. It's like gun grabbers. You don't need that kind of gun.
Yeah.
I want to own that kind of gun.
But you don't need it.
I'm not unlawful.
But you don't need it?
Exactly.
How selfish are you?
Exactly.
Not only are you buying too many guns and guns I don't like, you're buying a gun that I can't have.
Right. Yeah.
Because we've limited the number of guns.
Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. According to the FBI, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino both saying it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
On Sunday morning. And so you and I asked the question, then what in the hell was everybody waving that morning in the folder? Remember, there was nothing new in the folders.
Well, and that's the
Why
thing.
were they so excited? Did they even read it?
With now of what we know from this point, did they even read anything in the folder?
Yeah, doesn't make
before
any
they started
sense.
waving it around. Wow, that's just. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know. Again, I don't know if they even fully understood what was in the folder.
I haven't seen on social media yet the conspiracy theorists heat up yet.
No, but we can imagine where it's going with them, right? That it's, okay, yeah, this is,
all the Republicans that were...
and everybody is in cahoots because if they let everything out, then everybody's in trouble or, whatever, wherever it's going.
All the Republicans were on Epstein's island.
Yeah, and, it will hurt. Well, or at the very least, it hurts international relations because of everybody that's involved. And this could be, there's so many of our allies around the world would be negatively affected and blah, 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 blah. I don't know.
National security, relations with Iran
by
and the
the
Middle
way,
East.
It wouldn't be a stretch. If it were true, it wouldn't be a stretch at all. But the thing is it's hard to know what is true, what isn't, or what information they have.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You see what happened last week? The Federal Reserve quietly purchased $43.6 billion worth of U.S. Treasuries over a 4-day span, including $8.8 billion in 30-year notes in a single day. This move, unannounced publicly, deviates from its previous stance of monetary tightening. One of the reasons is China is dropping treasuries, not all, but buying fewer treasuries and buying gold instead.
Right.
And so this is basically QE. You know, one of the ways that we got into the inflation that we got in, first off was deficit spending, then the other one was QE, printing money in order to buy our own treasury bills in order to keep the rates lower.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, though, I have to ask this question. I asked the question last week. Initially, we saw, the treasuries come down a little bit, and I asked the question last week. Then they went back up again, and I went, why are they going back up?
Yeah.
You have right now the 30-year treasury at 4.95, almost at 5%, which caused that panic last time, and the 10-year over 4.5% now, which did cause the panic last time.
Right.
And so you look at it, now that this has gotten out, they're calling it stealth quantitative easing. They don't want it publicized. Why? They don't want investors to know that, do they?
Right. No.
Because that's the question. Will buying it actually lower? Will buying those treasury bills by printing the cash, printing the money to just buy treasury bills to keep it lower, will it have the opposite effect would be my question. If there's a panic that if China is doing it, then other countries are going to do it too, which will drive up the cost of a treasury bill, actually not drive it down.
I think there's a case to be made that it could. You could be making it worse.
I was making a question without a statement. I want to make sure it was a legit question. I wasn't making a statement through the question.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know when I am.
Well, I mean, I think we'll definitely find out fairly quickly. I think the Moody's thing on Friday, we'll see how far that goes. I think, again, what the financial world is looking at is how seriously lawmakers take it. And that starts with what happens in the House this week.
That's a great point.
But ultimately, the market won't judge anything until something gets to the president's desk, which means we've got to see what the Senate wants to do with it and how you hash out the two and finally get one big, beautiful bill to the president's desk. So it's again, what is that policy going to be? Because the markets could have the if we in the era of Doge, it could be that the market judges it this way, a lot like you and I. If you guys can't get this done in the era of Doge, you'll never get it done. And if there aren't true cuts,
that's a great point.
If there aren't true cuts here, then you see, I don't know, a further downgrading in the future because the debt's going to go up. The deficit's not going to be solved.
No, that's a great point. Will the markets look at it if in the same week that, well, okay, maybe not the same week because we're not going to have a final result, but if they know that the House isn't going to do it, is the Senate really going to do any significant cutting? And if the deficit's going to skyrocket under Republicans,
it could be as early as this week.
And that's the sense right now.
Right.
And quantitative easing is back, and they're doing it in a stealth way to keep it as quiet as possible, which isn't going to work.
Right.
Because it ends up being public information anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not announcing that they're doing it.
Yeah.
Does that drive? Wow. Does it have the complete opposite effect?
Yeah.
Well, at least for the QE. I mean, there is no opposite effect. If they're not going to be involved in fiscal sanity, the markets are going to react to that in a negative way.
Yeah.
So interesting. We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we'll see.
So here we go.
Here we are.
Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. Are you ready?
All right.
Here we go.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. FBI Director, this is a story from Fox News. They're the ones that ran the interview. FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino insisted that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in his Manhattan jail. In an exclusive interview with Fox News on Sunday, Epstein was found dead in his jail at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York in August of 2019. And New York City's chief medical examiner ruled his death a suicide by hanging. He was to stand trial on federal charges of sex trafficking of minors. His death instantly triggered a wave of conspiracy theories, with many speculating that he was murdered in order to protect the powerful figures who associated with him. Epstein was a known associate of President Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew. The phrase "Epstein didn't kill himself" became a viral internet meme in the wake of his death. In fact, Comey was walking down a beach the other day and saw that in the sand written in seashells, with many speculating that he was murdered in order to protect powerful figures who were associated with him. As someone who's worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor who's been in the prison system, you just heard him say that, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one. And that's what this was, Patel said when questioned about Epstein's death. He added that those who disagree with him have a right to their opinion.
Well,
that's by the way, that's the dumbest answer ever.
Opinion?
You have a right to your opinion. Well, who doesn't?
That's, well, cause of death, 2:31 p.m. Opinions vary.
He killed himself, Bongino added. I've seen the whole file. He killed himself. Conservatives were livid in February after the Trump administration's Justice Department facilitated a release of documents relating to the Epstein case that critics claimed had been a complete disappointment. The documents did not include a so-called client list, nor were there any new revelations regarding Epstein's alleged sex trafficking. I nor the task force were given or reviewed the Epstein documents being released today. A New York Post story just revealed that the documents will simply be Epstein's phone book. This is not what we or the American people asked for and was a complete disappointment. Get us the information we asked for, said Representative Anna Paulina Luna, posted on X at that particular time. To us, it was the show that went on beforehand. It was the performance art beforehand,
right,
by all these Republicans holding up the folders and waving, "We've got it, we've got it, we've got it."
What are you waving? Do you even know what's in that? Because if you come out and you know, that's, and by the way, you're about to release it, which again goes back to the theory that maybe they didn't know what's in it or what was in it at that time. Because you would only have that kind of excitement if there was going to be this massive wave of new information learned.
You knew what was in it, and it was like, wow, we got it. All this time of fighting for this, and we finally got it, and it was nothing.
Right. Because you could have said it took too long to get here, but quite unfortunately, not much was learned in the process. But we do know that the process worked in getting us this information, that we should have gotten before. And that's something that we could consider progress, even though, again, in this particular case, it didn't give us any new information on the actual case. Pretty simple. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I just wish somebody would unleash the Kraken. You know, that's what it feels like. It's just bizarre behavior when you got nothing. And either you know you have nothing, which means, all right, everybody, thank you for being here. You're kind of subdued. Here's the information.
Well, there is a question in a criminal case like this why you don't release the names. That's right. Where the pressure will be. Be on Republicans all the time.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Look, transparency. This is what do you mean this will affect national security? Will affect whatever? And they say will affect the victims.
Mm-hmm.
Don't list the victims.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've got a list of names of people that were on the island,
Right.
why specifically can't you release it?
Right.
I don't know what happened. You and I don't speculate.
I don't know.
As you notice on this show, we really don't talk a lot about criminal cases when they just begin.
Right.
Because we don't know anything. And everything is speculation on it. We've seen that every time we've ever covered a case. It's like,
Right.
well, we don't know.
Right. Can't tell you.
Well, they're speculating. Well, they're idiots.
Yeah.
They don't know. If you're saying that we should be like people who guess on something that they don't have a factual basis for, that's fine. But we don't get involved in the conspiracy theories.
Right.
We'll talk about the fact that, well, in order to stop the conspiracy theories, you need to be more transparent and let information out. You need to be as transparent as the Biden administration in any endeavor that you have.
That's right.
I'm reading from Mark.
It's not going to be written on the beach for you.
Oh, there are so many memes of seashells. It's just great.
By the way, the fact that he used the word formation, because it implies natural formation. Which is why I came up with that smarmy joke last week about the sand crabs. Look at what these sand crabs left here.
Does anybody know if he admitted? Because remember, he can't lie to FBI agents.
No, he can't. No.
Did he tell them he did it? I mean, I don't want to say I get any joy out of it. But
certainly, we get confirmation as to who he is.
But if Comey was arrested for lying to FBI agents, there is a certain
there's a certain justice there. And Gary, you and I both have a higher loyalty to that certain kind of justice.
We have a higher loyalty to the law.
or certain satisfaction.
But that's the first thing I thought of. Okay, they're talking. He can't lie to the FBI.
Yeah.
He said he didn't do it. He just came upon it.
Right.
Did he tell them the truth?
Okay. Okay. All right.
Otherwise,
well, or look, I have no reason to believe that this is the case, but imagine if hypothetically someone who was accused of this, I'm not saying specifically him, but, just imagine hypothetically if he lied to the FBI about this. Yes. And then down the road, it was found that he lied to the FBI on an investigation.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
That would be karma.
That's coming right back.
I mean, they're just. So everything that I did, nothing happened to me, but I went to jail for lying about seashells on a beach.
Yeah, and since we're celebrating the anniversary of the release of Jaws, and, it was a beach and all, we'll throw Richard Dreyfuss's old line in there. James Comey, you wouldn't know karma if it came up and bit you in the ass.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. A supporting document is a document generated or received by a motor carrier in the normal course of business that can be used by law enforcement to verify a driver's logs. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, including receipts for meals, lodging, and fuel, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm telling you, I love the one of the main Babylon Bee headlines from over the weekend.
Yeah?
New study. Nobody thinks they're stupid, but many are. I love that one.
I almost fully understand that joke.
I know, that's just absolutely fantastic. I'm like, that's really good.
I kind of get it. Oh my gosh, that's funny. That's hilarious.
Like I say, Mad Magazine for adults.
Yeah, it really is.
You know,
better. Quite frankly, it's better. I mean,
Yeah.
Mad Magazine had its day and the whole thing at the time.
When
but-
I was a kid, yeah.
Yeah, this is absolute greatness. I mean, they every day they're in there crushing it.
I know.
You know, Mad Magazine came out, was it once a month?
I think it was once a month, yeah.
Yeah.
And they sort of went after more Hollywood than anything
Yeah, yeah.
else. I
Well,
mean, they would just destroy
very-
anybody from Hollywood.
Very good work.
Yeah.
But this is definitely progress. You know what I mean? This is what you want to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of my favorites here, though. DNC forced to accept David Hogg after he identifies as a woman. Embarrassed parents tell friends their Harvard student is away at plumber school.
Yeah. That's funny because I was thinking of a joke earlier on the whole David Hogg thing. They thought they had followed DEI policy, and then they found out David Hogg was a man. That's funny.
And from the panic, a portion of it, worrying, America is just as unprepared now for a giant monkey climbing skyscrapers as we were in 1933.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, we never even got to the fact that last week, speaking of climate change, Antarctica, the amount of ice has skyrocketed.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
The amount of ice that's been put on there is, well, yeah, but these things can happen. No, you said it was going to be
You said it
melted
was
by
gonna be gone.
2015.
Remember that picture of that polar bear balancing on that ice cube? Remember? Remember that? We do.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. All right, so I'm reading this here. Mark Halpern posted this 6 hours ago. You ready?
Okay.
Right now, even many Joe Biden loyalists and nonpartisan doctors are having a lot of private conversations that are quite pointed and skeptical.
Okay.
So one question is, how much of this will be openly talked about in the media on Monday? And he says one place is, his podcast, of course. Projection. If the intention was to make it less likely that the Bidens would be accused of lying and engaging in a cover-up built on falsehoods during his presidency, well, the impact might be 180 degrees of that. Something that you and I talked about in the beginning of the show. And and I think so because I think so because the Republicans, the House Oversight Committee said, after the Her tapes came out, there's nothing you can do now if you're a Democrat. And, you and I, I think everybody thought when this came out, will the media and the Democrats use this as an excuse, saying, well, you can't criticize the Biden family because they're suffering right now. And it's like, well, no, number one, it's not an attack on Joe, but Wall Street Journal just blasted. Wall Street Journal editorial page blasted Joe Biden. Why? She's closest to him.
Yeah, well, we said we said it back then. We said it when the question started to come about, when he became president. But we suspected things before that. But when it started to become more obvious, the first person to know is the spouse. That is the person who is going to see them in those moments where nobody else sees them. They're going to know. Therefore, the responsibility is hers first. And as First Lady of the United States, a much greater responsibility to make that known. There's no way around those facts. There's no way to debate those facts that I just laid out. Everybody knows how this works.
And we've talked about this before. I look at this, and we've never criticized Biden. We've criticized the people around him because we know from dealing with our family and others that when the cognitive ability goes, sometimes early on they catch it. Most likely they don't.
Right.
The person who's having the cognitive issues or the dementia issues doesn't see the change. And as we know, as it continues to go further, we'll get upset. By the way, just let everybody know, my dad doing great.
Oh, good.
He had some down weeks there. He's doing great right now. His cognitive abilities, whether it was the infections he had, whatever. But Dad, and Dad, I've seen it in Dad since Christmas time. We've been public about it. And we talked about just in general. We didn't have to tell him, for example, a lot of families did. I mentioned driving. We never had to tell my dad not to drive. He figured that out himself.
Right.
Early on, he says, I don't trust myself anymore at it. But as you continue through it, you don't know, the things that then families, will say, okay, this has got to go. You can't, whether it's you can't drive anymore, you can't be in charge of your finances anymore. You can't be cutting the lawn anymore.
Yeah.
There's a ton of things that, you just can't do. When you get to that point. And some of those you don't know. As you get deeper into it, you don't know. Right. You're paying attention to what other people tell you to do. So none of this, and this is why I think it's going to continue, none of this. Mark Halperin's a Democrat. He's got another Democrat on that podcast with him. They're going to cover it. CNN's going to cover it.
Yeah.
News Nation, I haven't figured out what they are yet. I mean, they seem to be trying to play the middle of the road. How's that working out for them? Audience-wise? Some of the stuff's good that they have there. I mean,
I don't.
Some of it's pretty good.
I think so far so good. I mean, there's again, they have their moments. I don't really. Here's the thing. You and I kind of look at it from with different eyes. On this on coverage in general, any media group out there. Look, I think they could probably reduce the budget on lip gloss at Fox News. I'm just saying, save a little. I know it's the Murdochs and they have the money, but there's certain things, and maybe some hair dye. They could cut back on that. It's really about how you approach it. I have great confidence in a number of people. You and I have friends, in fact, in the media, and sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. Some are better than others at covering the stories, but it's the way that this whole thing was covered. It was all one-sided. If you think about the cognitive issues with Joe Biden, the liberal media went out of their way to fight you over it. And now they're all going, well, they kept it from us. Well, then why were you fighting? Why were you fighting and going after anybody and everybody back then that claimed he had cognitive issues, including Jake Tapper, who now is the authority on the cognitive issues, according to Jake Tapper.
Oh, man, did you see Jake Sullivan, though, since you mentioned the other Jake,
Mm-hmm.
he got blasted.
Yeah.
This is, he's an outright, liar.
Yes.
Where he said he saw absolutely nothing.
Right.
And you and I said it. When you talk about your national security advisor, you see them every single day.
That person is closer to you than your Veep on many things and on most days.
And to most presidents. Yeah.
To most presidents.
Most presidents, yeah. And so when he said
certainly,
that,
by the way, in this case, I would think, in fact, now that most people aren't denying there are clear cognitive issues and were present during his presidency, I would think First Lady, National Security Advisor, there's the two closest people, because you're concerned of a moment where it's, hey, what does this button do? You don't want to risk anything. He has to be, well, think about it. It goes beyond just the day-to-day care. You have to be, you have to be completely involved to make sure that nothing politically falls out, but ultimately that he doesn't do something if he's unaware of doing it.
Well, what you're saying is, as national security director, being concerned about the security of the United States and having, for example, knowledge of the top secrets of what other countries are doing that could destabilize the United States, you probably would understand the secrets from the White House of keeping important information from the public that could affect the security of the United States.
I'm actually
being national
security advisor,
not natural, national security advisor.
It wasn't natural at all. That's the thing is, it might have been the only thing driving Jake Sullivan to actually care about national security, because you're thinking, oh man, this guy's got the football. We gotta watch this guy, because technically, we talked about it. Because we would get it constantly. There's, he's not the one running the Obamas are running it. George Clooney's running the country. It's, we get all these things about, somebody else is running, Clay Aiken's running the country, whatever it is. And what we were saying back then was, well, wait a minute. No. This is the point. He's still, at the time, president. And until he's not, then, we all see the great concern here. But he's technically the president, which is and has to be, if you're on the inside, your greatest concern, because you don't want there to be political fallout. I believe, and I tend to believe, that was Jill Biden trying to protect her husband, trying to protect herself. The whole CYA thing, didn't want that kind of political fallout from official, which would, of course, be the case, from official, and maybe plenty inside the Democratic Party at the top, if you officially had him step down because he's no longer capable.
Which is why you need to put people under oath.
Yep.
You need to put people under oath.
This has to be done.
You have to put people under oath from the administration. This can never happen again. This is one of those things that can never happen again. For all the things that, the Democrats screaming about democracy, it keeps popping up and over again. The ones that actually don't believe in democracy, are the Democrats. And forget about believing in, the concept of democracy. The people of the United States, and you're around the president, and you know what the Constitution says, and that the president isn't making his own decisions. You and I know, without question, that there were decisions that came out of the White House that Joe Biden could not cognitively understand,
right,
and make a decision on, that other people made a decision for him on it, or coaxed him in a particular direction, which is the same thing.
Right. It's the same thing.
Right. You knew his cognitive abilities were gone, and you could lead him wherever you wished to lead him.
Exactly.
And we all know that was the case.
I mean, if there is a case for puppeteering, it's here.
We all know that was the case. The Republicans, I'm so glad they did that Friday night. They cannot back off now. I agree with Mark Halpern. We said it earlier. I said, I think this thing's going to have the opposite effect of what I heard earlier when now the Republicans have to quiet down. Absolutely not. Because
actually, it brings up more questions.
Yeah, it's not about Joe Biden.
Right.
It's about the people that were hiding from the people of the United States, his general health.
Right.
Knowing that if they released it, now we don't know how far back the prostate cancer goes, but what you've been seeing, you know one case you were telling me about it, but most cases and most of these urologists and cancer doctors will tell you
takes years.
That it takes years to go from the beginning of prostate cancer to when it metastasizes to the bone. Given his history.
As long as they are getting their regular checkups.
Yes, exactly.
Again, things can go undetected, and if there's a year or two missed in checkups or whatever it is, then you can have that conversation. But it still takes years to develop at that point or get to that point because they normally catch it.
If you're a man and you're getting a yearly checkup, every year you get a PSA test.
Yep.
And probably most males over the age of 60, maybe not 50, but over 60, can probably tell you if they get regular checkups. What's your PSA score? It's a 1.3. It's a 2.4. It's a 4.3.
Yeah, mine's right at 2. Just got mine done just in a month ago. Yeah. Was that 3 weeks ago?
We're watching mine just a tiny bit.
Right.
It went from, because I was up one time to like a 1.1, then it went down to a 0.97. Now it's up to a 1.3. Still very safe margins, but you're still always watching.
Yeah, mine's well within margins.
Yeah.
The thing is, doctors know what that range is.
Anything in 2 and under, my doctor tells me basically you're cancer-free for 2 years.
Yeah, and every time mine moves one way or the other, because it'll go up and down.
Yeah,
and anytime any score moves up or down, you're going, but shouldn't I? And the doctor's like, look. You're good.
Calm down. It's
okay.
Like, what can I do? What can I do?
It's
What can I do? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm ready to call my family and have a meeting. No. Sit down. You're fine. And also pull your pants up.
That's why you need to call your family.
Exactly.
You got your
we
pants
need
down
somebody
too
to
much.
drive you home.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today because our show is over in an hour. That's right. I know. But don't worry. If you didn't catch the first hour, after the show's over, we record the entire show, and it becomes our podcast. If you've got our Red Eye Radio app, after our show's over, you can listen to the first hour if you wish.
Yeah.
And if for some reason you cannot listen to one of our great radio stations live.
How dare you?
Overnight, yes. Well, we do stream all 5 hours live on the Red Eye Radio app. So you can listen then. Coming up, more on Joe Biden. And by the way, what I've seen on social media, it's just, you've got people interviewing doctors left and right.
Yeah.
And saying, wait a minute, is it very rare that it would occur in a period of months?
Right, yeah.
And almost all the doctors are saying very rare.
Right.
All the doctors are saying very rare.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.